Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stood in the training arena. The sun of New Terra beat down on the compound, making the metal floors hot beneath his boots. 6 months had passed since humans first met the Kethrans, and Jake still couldn't believe he was here. The Kethrans were incredible. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with bodies covered in short fur that ranged from silver to dark gray. Their faces resembled wolves, with sharp teeth and keen yellow eyes. But they walked upright like humans and wore armor that gleamed in the sunlight. Jake was a security officer, former Marine, and he thought he'd seen everything. But training with alien warriors was something else entirely. The Kethrans were strong, faster than any human, and born for battle. Their entire culture revolved around honor, strength, and combat prowess. Jake respected that, even if it made him nervous. Today was different though. Today, the Kethran commander wanted to test him personally. Her name was Vara, and she was what the Kethrans called an alpha. She led their honor guard, the elite warriors assigned to protect the diplomatic mission. Jake had watched her train her troops. She was fierce, disciplined, and honestly terrifying when she wanted to be. "Human," Vara's voice carried across the arena. She stepped into the ring, her silver fur catching the light. She wore minimal armor, just enough to cover the essentials. Her muscles moved beneath her fur like coiled springs. "Your people claim to be warriors. I wish to see this myself." Jake's heart hammered in his chest, but he stepped forward. Around the arena, both humans and Kethrans gathered to watch. This wasn't just a sparring match. It was a test, a show, maybe even a political statement. He couldn't back down. "I'll do my best, Commander," Jake said, falling into a fighting stance. Vara's lips pulled back, showing her fangs. It might have been a smile. "We shall see." The fight began without ceremony. Vara moved like lightning, closing the distance between them in a heartbeat. Jake barely dodged her first strike. Her claws whistled past his face, close enough that he felt the air move. He countered with a quick jab, but she knocked his arm aside like it was nothing. Jake realized immediately that strength wouldn't win this fight. She was too powerful, too fast. He needed to be smarter. He needed to use technique, timing, and every dirty trick he'd learned in the Marines. They circled each other. Vara attacked again, a combination of strikes that would have ended the fight if any landed clean. Jake blocked, dodged, and rolled away. He could hear the Kethrans watching, their low growls expressing disappointment. They expected him to fall quickly. But Jake wasn't done. When Vara overextended on a heavy strike, he saw his opening. He swept her leg, using her own momentum against her. For just a moment, the mighty Alpha stumbled. Jake pressed his advantage, landing 2 quick strikes to her midsection. Vara's eyes widened. Then they narrowed with something new. Respect, maybe. Or anger. Possibly both. The fight intensified. Vara stopped holding back, treating Jake like a real opponent instead of a weak human. They traded blows, neither giving ground. Jake's body screamed in pain. His arms felt like lead. But he kept fighting. He had to prove humans belonged here, that they were worthy partners. Vara came at him with a powerful overhead strike. Jake sidestepped, but not quite fast enough. Her claws raked across his shoulder, drawing blood. He ignored the pain and countered, landing a solid hit to her jaw. It barely fazed her, but it shocked her. Then something changed. Jake saw it in her eyes. The focus sharpened. Her movements became more aggressive, more primal. She wasn't just fighting anymore. Something deeper had taken over. Vara lunged forward with incredible speed. Jake tried to block, but she powered through his defense. Her hand locked around his arm, pulling him close. Before he could react, before he could even understand what was happening, he felt her jaws close on his shoulder. Pain exploded through Jake's body. Sharp teeth broke through his skin, sinking deep into muscle. He gasped, trying to pull away, but her grip was iron. For 3 seconds that felt like forever, she held him there. Then suddenly, she released him. Jake stumbled backward, clutching his bleeding shoulder. The arena had gone completely silent. Every Kethran stood frozen, staring at them with wide eyes. Even the humans looked confused by the reaction. Vara stood perfectly still. Her hand covered her mouth. Her eyes were huge, filled with what looked like shock and horror. Around them, the Kethran warriors began to murmur, their voices rising in agitation. Jake didn't understand. It was just a bite. Injuries happened in sparring. Why did everyone look like something terrible had just occurred? Torin, the Kethran diplomat, pushed through the crowd. His face was grave. He looked at Vara, then at Jake, then back at Vara. "Commander," Torin said quietly, "what have you done?" Vara said nothing. She just stared at Jake, her expression unreadable. Jake pressed his hand against the wound. Blood seeped between his fingers. "What's going on?" he asked. "Why is everyone acting like this?" But nobody answered. The Kethrans were all looking at Vara with a mixture of shock and awe. The humans were looking around confused, sensing something important had happened but not understanding what. Jake felt dizzy. Maybe from blood loss. Maybe from something else. Something that started at the bite wound and spread through his body like warm electricity. Something that felt foreign and strange and somehow alive. "Medical team to Training Arena 1, someone called over the radio. We have an injury. Human officer down." As the medics rushed toward him, Jake locked eyes with Vara across the arena. She still hadn't moved. Still looked stricken by what she'd done. In that moment, Jake felt something impossible. He felt her emotions. Guilt, fear, and something else he couldn't name. But that was crazy. He couldn't feel someone else's emotions. Could he? The medics reached him, and everything became a blur of movement and urgent voices. But even as they led him away, Jake kept looking back at Vara. Something had changed. Something fundamental and irreversible. He just didn't know what yet. The medical bay smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Jake sat on the examination table while Dr. Linda Hayes cleaned his wound. The bite was deep, for distinct puncture marks that formed a crescent shape on his shoulder. It hurt, but Jake had dealt with worse during his service. What bothered him more was the strange feeling that hadn't gone away. That warm electric sensation still pulsed beneath his skin, spreading from the bite like ripples in water. And he could still feel something else. A presence in the back of his mind that wasn't his own. "This is unusual," Dr. Hayes said, examining the wound closely. "The bleeding stopped almost immediately. And look at this. The tissue around the bite is already beginning to heal. Faster than normal." Jake frowned. "Is that bad?" "I don't know yet. I've never treated a Kethran bite before. Nobody has." She prepared a bandage. "I'm going to run some tests on your blood. Make sure there's no infection or foreign substances." Before Jake could respond, the medical bay doors opened. Several Kethran elders entered, their fur gray with age. They wore elaborate robes marked with symbols Jake didn't recognize. Behind them came Vara, flanked by 2 guards. She looked smaller somehow, her shoulders hunched and her ears pressed flat against her head. The lead elder, a tall male with a scarred face, approached Dr. Hayes. "We must speak with the human. Alone." Dr. Hayes crossed her arms. "This is my medical bay. I don't take orders from you." "Please," another elder said, a female with kind eyes. "This is a matter of great importance. We mean him no harm. But we must explain what has happened." Jake nodded to Dr. Hayes. "It's okay. I want to hear this." The doctor didn't look happy, but she stepped back. The elders formed a semicircle around Jake's table. Vara stood apart, not meeting his eyes. "I am Elder Corinne," the scarred male said. "What occurred in the arena today is unprecedented. Commander Vara has given you a bonding mark." Jake blinked. "A what?" "Among our people, the bite is sacred," the female elder explained. "When an alpha bites another during combat or moments of deep passion, it creates a permanent bond. A connection between souls." Jake's stomach dropped. "You mean like marriage?" "More than your marriage," Corinne said. "The bite transfers pheromones and biological agents into your bloodstream. Microscopic organisms that will change you on a cellular level. They create a link between you and Commander Vara. A bond that cannot be broken." The warm feeling beneath Jake's skin suddenly made terrible sense. The feeling I have. Like something's moving inside me. That's what this is. Yes, the kind elder said. Over the next days, the bond will strengthen. You will sense Vara's emotions. Know where she is. Feel when she is hurt or happy or afraid. And she will sense you in the same way. Jake looked at Vara. She finally met his eyes, and he saw guilt there. Deep, overwhelming guilt. And he knew, somehow he absolutely knew, that he was sensing her real feelings. This wasn't his imagination. I didn't mean to, Vara said quietly. In the heat of battle, instinct took over. You fought well. Too well. My alpha nature responded, and I lost control. I have brought shame upon myself and my people. Bonding marks are not given lightly, Corinne said sternly. An alpha only marks their chosen mate, the one they wish to spend their life with. For Vara to mark a human, and by accident. This is a crisis. Jake's mind raced. Wait. You're saying we're bonded now? Like permanently? Because of one bite? Yes, the kind elder said gently. The bond is already forming. It cannot be undone. You are marked as Vara's mate in the eyes of our people. But I'm human. She's Catherine. How does that even work? We do not know, Corinne admitted. This has never happened before. The biological compatibility between our species is unknown. But the bond does not care about species. It cares only about the mark. Jake put his head in his hands. This morning he'd been a simple security officer. Now he was apparently married to an alien warrior commander because she'd gotten two into their sparring match. It was insane. What happens now? He asked. The elders exchanged glances. That is complicated, Corinne said. By our law, you and Vara are bonded mates. You would be expected to honor that bond. To live as partners. But human law doesn't recognize alien bonding, Dr. Hayes interjected, having listened from across the room. Jake is a human citizen under human jurisdiction. This is why it is a crisis, the kind elder said. Two peoples, two laws, one bond. We must find a path forward that respects both our cultures. Jake felt Vara's emotions again. Shame, yes, but also something else. Fear. She was afraid of what this meant for her too. Can I talk to Vara alone? Jake asked. Just for a minute. The elders didn't look pleased, but they nodded. They filed out of the medical bay, and Dr. Hayes reluctantly followed, though she left the door open and stayed within earshot. Jake and Vara stared at each other. Up close, he could see the patterns in her fur, the flecks of gold in her yellow eyes. He could feel her presence in his mind, a constant awareness that she was there. I truly am sorry, Vara said. You fought with honor. You earned respect. And I repaid you with this burden. Is it a burden to you? Jake asked. Being bonded to me? Vara's ears flicked uncertainly. I never wanted a mate. I dedicated my life to being a warrior, a leader. A bond would complicate everything. And to bond with a human. She shook her head. My people will question my judgment. Some will see it as weakness. Right, Jake said flatly. Because humans are weak. That is not what I meant. Vara stepped closer. You proved today that humans are not weak. You fought better than many Catherine warriors I have faced. But you are still human. Softer, shorter-lived, without the strength of my people. A bond between us makes no sense. Jake felt a spike of anger, and he saw Vara's eyes widen. She'd felt it through the bond. That was going to take getting used to. So what do you want to do? Jake asked. Your elders said the bond can't be broken. It cannot, Vara confirmed. What is done is done. We must learn to live with it. Great. That's just great. Jake slid off the examination table, testing his shoulder. It barely hurt anymore. So now we're stuck together. Two people who didn't choose this. Didn't want this. Just stuck. Yes, Vara said simply. They stood in awkward silence. Jake could feel her discomfort matching his own. It was strange, invasive, knowing someone else's feelings like they were his own. For what it is worth, Vara said quietly, You have my respect. Not many could have stood against me as you did. Thanks, Jake muttered. I'm sure that'll make this whole situation much easier. Vara's expression hardened. I know you did not ask for this. Neither did I. But we are warriors, both of us. We will adapt. We will survive. Survive, Jake repeated. Yeah. I guess that's all we can do. Dr. Hayes poked her head back in. Jake, I need to finish those tests. And Command wants to speak with you about what happened. Jake nodded. Vara turned to leave, but paused at the door. Jake Morrison, she said without looking back. I will find a way to make this right. Somehow. Then she was gone, leaving Jake with a wounded shoulder, a head full of confusion, and a bond he never asked for connecting him to an alien warrior who never wanted him. He touched the bandage on his shoulder. Beneath it, he could feel the mark. 4 puncture wounds that had changed everything. And deep down, in that new part of his mind where Vara's presence lived, he felt her guilt like it was his own. 3 days passed, and Jake learned that having a bond was exactly as uncomfortable as it sounded. He couldn't escape Vara's presence. Even when she was on the other side of the compound, he knew exactly where she was. It was like having a compass in his head that always pointed toward her. And the emotions were worse. When she trained, he felt her focus and aggression. When she met with her commanders, he felt her frustration and stress. He tried to go about his normal duties. He ran patrols, checked security systems, and filed reports. But everything felt different now. Other humans looked at him strangely. They whispered when they thought he couldn't hear. Some seemed curious. Others seemed worried, like maybe he wasn't fully human anymore. The Kethrans treated him differently too. Before, they'd mostly ignored him. Now they stared. Some nodded respectfully when he passed. Others curled their lips and looked away. Jake didn't need the bond to tell him that many Kethrans weren't happy about one of their alphas marking a human. Vara avoided him. She changed her routine to make sure they didn't cross paths. Jake felt grateful for that at first. But as the days went on, the bond made avoiding each other painful. Literally painful. His chest would ache when she was too far away for too long. From the spikes of discomfort he felt through their connection, she experienced the same thing. On the 4th day, Commander Stone called Jake into his office. Stone was a veteran, gray-haired and no-nonsense. He'd been running the human side of the compound since first contact. "Sit down, Morrison," Stone said, gesturing to a chair. His desk was covered with reports and star charts. "We need to talk about your situation." Jake sat, trying not to show how tired he was. Sleep had been difficult. The bond didn't rest, and neither did Vara's emotions. "I've been in meetings with Kethran leadership for 3 days straight," Stone continued. "Everyone's trying to figure out what to do with you too. The political implications are significant." "I understand, sir." "Do you?" Stone leaned forward. "Half the Kethran leadership sees this as an opportunity. Proof that our species can truly unite. The other half sees it as an insult to their traditions. And our own government doesn't know whether you're a security risk now." Jake's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'm still loyal to humanity. The bond doesn't change that." "I believe you, son. But others aren't so sure. There's talk of sending you back to Earth for evaluation. Maybe reassignment to a non-contact position." The thought of leaving made Jake's chest tighten. Not because he loved New Terra, but because he knew the bond wouldn't let him go far from Vara. The pain would be unbearable. "However," Stone said, "the Kethrans have requested something. They want you and Vara to lead a joint patrol mission. Show both our peoples that the bond can work. That it makes you stronger, not weaker." "A mission?" Jake asked. "What kind of mission?" "Survey run. Northern Territories. There's been some raider activity near the mining outposts. Nothing major, but it needs checking out. You and Vara would lead a mixed team. 4 humans, 4 Kethrans." Jake considered it. Being forced to work closely with Vara sounded difficult. But maybe it was necessary. They couldn't avoid each other forever, and the bond punished them when they tried. "When do we leave?" Jake asked. Stone almost smiled. "Tomorrow morning." I suggest you talk to Vara before then. Team leaders should at least be on speaking terms. Jake found Vara in the armory, inspecting weapons for the patrol. She looked up when he entered, and he felt her spike of anxiety through the bond. She'd been dreading this conversation too. Commander Stone told me about the mission, Jake said, keeping his voice neutral.
Yes.
Vara set down the rifle she'd been examining. The elders believe it will help relations between our peoples.
And what do you believe?
Vara was quiet for a moment. I believe we have no choice. The bond will not allow us to stay apart. It grows stronger each day. The discomfort when you are far from me is becoming unbearable. Jake felt relieved that she admitted it.
Same here.
It's like my chest is being squeezed whenever you're across the compound. The elders say this will fade once we accept the bond, Vara said.
Once we stop fighting it. Accept it how?
Vara's ears flicked back.
By acknowledging what we are to each other. By spending time together instead of avoiding each other. By acting as bonded mates should.
Jake's face heated.
I'm not talking about that.
Nor am I, Vara said quickly.
I mean as partners. As warriors who trust each other. The bond was formed in combat. Perhaps it will settle once we fight together again.
That made sense, in a strange way. They'd connected during the sparring match. Maybe the bond needed them to be warriors together, not just two people uncomfortable with their situation. Okay, Jake said. Then tomorrow we'll be warriors. We'll lead this patrol, complete the mission, and show everyone that we can work together.
Agreed, Vara said.
She hesitated, then added, Jake Morrison. I have been thinking about what you said. About being stuck together.
I do not wish you to feel trapped. But we are trapped. You said the bond can't be broken. It cannot. But perhaps it does not have to be a trap. Perhaps it can be something else.
Vara met his eyes.
You fought with honor. You have earned respect from my warriors. Not many humans can say that.
If I must be bonded, I could have done far worse than a warrior who stands his ground. It wasn't exactly a declaration of affection, but it was something. An acknowledgement that maybe this situation wasn't completely terrible. Thanks, Jake said. And for what it's worth, you're a hell of a fighter. Probably the best warrior I've ever faced. Vara's lips pulled back, showing her fangs. It was definitely a smile this time.
Probably.
Definitely, Jake corrected, and felt a flicker of amusement from her side of the bond. It was the first positive emotion he'd felt from her since the bite. They spent the next hour planning the patrol route and discussing their team. Vara knew the Kethran warriors well. She spoke about their strengths and weaknesses with professional insight. Jake briefed her on the humans who'd been assigned. He could tell she was actually listening, taking his input seriously.
Working together felt natural. The bond helped.
He could sense when she was about to speak, could feel when she disagreed with something before she said it. It made communication faster, more efficient.
They fell into a rhythm without trying.
When they finished planning, Jake felt something he hadn't felt in days.
Hope. Maybe this could work.
Maybe the bond wasn't just a burden.
We leave at dawn, Vara said.
The transport will take us to the northern outpost.
From there, we patrol on foot.
I'll be ready, Jake promised. As he turned to leave, Vara called out.
Jake, thank you for not hating me. Many would, for what I did to you.
Jake looked back at her. Through the bond, he felt her genuine regret. But he also felt her resolve, her strength, her determination to make the best of this situation.
I don't hate you, he said honestly. I don't understand this bond thing. I don't know what it means for my future. But I don't hate you.
That night, Jake packed his gear for the mission. Weapons, supplies, survival equipment. As he worked, he noticed something. The ache in his chest was gone. Not completely, but significantly better. Vara was in her quarters across the compound, and he could feel her there. But it didn't hurt anymore. Maybe talking to her had helped. Maybe planning together had eased the bond's discomfort. Or maybe Stone was right, and they were starting to accept what they'd become. Bonded mates. The words still felt strange in Jake's mind. but less wrong than before. He touched the mark on his shoulder. The wounds had healed completely, leaving 4 small scars in a crescent pattern. His doctor said the healing speed was remarkable, probably a side effect of whatever the bite had introduced into his system. Through the bond, he felt Vara preparing for sleep. Her emotions had settled into quiet determination. She was ready for tomorrow's mission, ready to prove that they could work together. Jake felt the same determination rising in himself. Tomorrow they'd face raiders, rough terrain, and possibly hostile wildlife. But they'd do it as a team, as partners, maybe even as something more, given time. He settled into his bunk and closed his eyes. For the first time since the bite, he fell asleep quickly. And in his dreams, he ran through alien forests beside a silver-furred warrior who knew his every thought. The bond carried them both into sleep, 2 minds connected across the compound, no longer fighting what had joined them together. The patrol started well enough. Their mixed team left at dawn, heading north in a rugged transport vehicle. The landscape of New Terra was beautiful, all rolling hills covered in purple vegetation and strange rock formations that looked like they'd been carved by ancient waters. Jake sat up front with Vara, their team in the back. The humans on the team were solid. Private Chen was young but capable with communications. Corporal Davis had demolitions expertise. Lieutenant Hayes was a scout with sharp eyes. They all looked nervous about working with the Kethrans, but they hid it well. The Kethran warriors were impressive. Dren, Vara's second-in-command, was a massive male with dark gray fur. He'd barely acknowledged Jake's presence, his disapproval obvious. The others, Kira and Mira, were twin females who moved with identical grace. The fourth, an older male named Vec, watched everything with calculating yellow eyes. They reached the northern outpost by midday. It was a small facility, just a few buildings where miners and surveyors stayed during their work. The manager, a tired-looking woman named Carol, reported that raiders had been spotted near the western ridge 3 days ago. Probably just scavengers, Carol said, showing them the area on a map. But they got bold, came within a mile of the outpost. We scared them off, but I want to know if they've set up a camp nearby. Vara studied the map. We will investigate. If we find them, we will discourage their return. The team set out on foot, following the ridgeline. Jake noticed immediately how different it felt to patrol with Vara nearby. The bond kept him constantly aware of her position, even when she ranged ahead with Kira and Mira to scout. He knew she was alert, focused, ready for anything. But he also felt Dren's hostility like a physical weight. The big Kethran stayed close to Jake, watching him with obvious distrust. Finally, after an hour of silent hiking, Dren spoke. "You do not deserve the mark," Dren said quietly, so only Jake could hear. "You are weak. Human. Vara should have bonded with one of her own kind." Jake kept walking. "I didn't ask for the mark. It happened during a fight. A fight you should have lost quickly. But you used tricks, human deception, to stand against her." Dren's lips curled. This impressed her, confused her instincts. "But tricks do not make you worthy." "Then why are you telling me this?" Jake asked. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand your place. Vara is mine. She was always meant to be mine. When this mission ends, when the novelty fades, she will see that." Through the bond, Jake felt Vara's sudden spike of anger. She'd heard, even from 50 yards ahead. Her enhanced hearing picked up everything. A moment later, she appeared beside them, moving fast. "Dren," Vara's voice was cold. "You will show respect to my bonded mate, or you will leave this team." Dren's ears flattened. "Commander, I meant no disrespect to you. But this human is marked by me. By my choice." Vara stepped between them. "I know you desired a bond, Dren. I know you see Jake as stealing what you wanted. But I never promised myself to you. I never promised myself to anyone. What happened was an accident, yes. But the bond is real. You will accept it." Dren looked like he wanted to argue, but he bowed his head. "Yes, Commander." Vara watched him walk ahead before turning to Jake. "I apologize. Dren has been loyal, but he lets his feelings cloud his judgment." "He's in love with you," Jake said. It wasn't hard to figure out. He believes he is, Vara corrected. But what he loves is the idea of bonding with an alpha. Of gaining status through me. That is not love. Jake wanted to ask what love actually was to a Kethran, but Lieutenant Hayes called out from the western ridge. Commander Morrison, Commander Vara. You need to see this. They climbed to the ridge and looked down into a narrow valley. Below, partially hidden by the purple vegetation, sat a raider camp. But it was much larger than expected. At least 30 beings, maybe more. And they weren't just scavengers. Those are Vex, Vara growled. Mercenaries. Professional raiders. The Vex looked like bipedal insects, with hard carapaces and multiple arms. They carried advanced weapons, and their camp was well organized. This wasn't some random group looking for easy pickings. This was a military operation. We need to report this, Jake said. This is beyond our mission parameters. Vara agreed, but before they could move, one of the Vex looked up. Multiple compound eyes caught the sunlight. It pointed directly at their position and clicked something to its companions. They've spotted us, Davis hissed. We need to move. The Vex camp erupted into activity. Raiders grabbed weapons and started climbing toward the ridge. There were too many to fight, and they were moving fast. Fall back to the outpost, Vara ordered. Quick march, stay together. The team ran. The Vex pursued, their insectoid legs carrying them over the terrain faster than expected. Jake heard weapons fire behind them. Energy blasts scorched the rocks nearby. Through the bond, Jake felt Vara's tactical mind working. She was calculating distances, speed, possible ambush points. Without speaking, he understood her plan. They needed to slow the Vex down, buy time to reach the outpost and call for reinforcements. There, Jake pointed to a narrow pass ahead. Bottleneck. We can hold them there. Vara nodded. She'd seen the same opportunity. The bond made their thinking synchronized. Davis, Chen, set up at the pass. Hayes, high ground for cover fire. Kethran's with me. We'll draw them in. The team moved with precision. Davis and Chen positioned themselves behind rocks at the narrow point. Hayes climbed to an outcrop with her rifle. The Kethrans spread out, ready to engage. The Vex came fast, but they were overconfident. They expected easy prey. Instead, they ran into a coordinated defense. Hayes's shots dropped 3 in the first volley. The Kethrans roared and charged, their natural weapons and combat instincts overwhelming the first wave. Jake fought beside Vara, and it was like dancing with someone who knew every move he'd make. When he ducked, she struck high. When she drew attackers in, he flanked them. The bond connected their combat styles into something seamless. But there were too many Vex. For every one they dropped, 2 more appeared. Jake's rifle ran dry. He switched to his sidearm, then his knife. Vara fought with tooth and claw, her fur matted with blood. Dren fought like a demon, trying to prove himself. He killed 4 Vex in quick succession, then charged toward a group near the pass. But he overextended, got surrounded. Jake saw it happening through Vara's eyes, felt her surge of fear for her warrior. Without thinking, Jake sprinted toward Dren. He crashed into the Kethran, knocking him out of the path of an energy blast that would have killed him. They rolled together, and Jake came up firing. He dropped 2 Vex before his pistol clicked empty. Dren stared at Jake with shock. The human had just saved his life. "Fall back," Jake shouted, pulling Dren to his feet. They ran together toward the pass, covering each other. The team held the bottleneck for 10 minutes of brutal fighting. Then finally, blessedly, they heard the sound of engines. Reinforcements from the outpost, armed with heavy weapons. The Vex broke and ran, disappearing into the valley. Jake collapsed against a rock, breathing hard. His body was covered in cuts and bruises. Vara dropped beside him, equally exhausted. Through the bond, he felt her relief, her pride, her concern for him. "You fought well," she said between breaths. "Like a true warrior." "We fought well," Jake corrected. "Together." Dren approached slowly. His expression was complicated, conflicted. "You saved my life, human. I owe you a debt." Jake shook his head. "We're a team. That's what teams do. Still. Dren's ears moved forward, a sign of respect. I was wrong about you. You may be human, but you are not weak. Vara's instincts were correct. You are worthy of the mark. It wasn't exactly friendship, but it was acceptance. Jake would take it. That night, back at the outpost while they waited for transport, Jake and Vara sat together under New Terra's twin moons. The bond hummed between them, comfortable now instead of painful. Today changed things, Vara said quietly. Fighting beside you. The bond made us stronger. I felt it too, Jake admitted. It was like knowing what you'd do before you did it. This is what a true bond should be. Trust. Partnership. Strength shared between two warriors. Vara looked at him. I have been fighting this since it happened. Resenting the accident that bound us. But today showed me the truth. What truth? That maybe it was not an accident. Maybe my instincts knew something my mind did not. That you and I together are better than either of us alone. Jake felt warmth spread through his chest. Not from the bond, but from something simpler. Something human and real. So what does this mean? He asked. Vara's fangs showed in a gentle smile. It means I stop fighting what we are. It means I accept you as my mate, not just because the bond demands it, but because you have earned it. And if I want the same thing, then we move forward. Together. As partners. As warriors. Vara's expression grew serious. And perhaps, in time, as more. Jake reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand met her furred one, their fingers intertwining. Through the bond, he felt her acceptance, her growing affection, her hope for what they could become. Together, Jake agreed. Whatever comes next. Above them, the stars of New Terra's sky shone bright. Two souls, connected by accident but choosing each other by will, sat beneath those stars and faced their future as one. The intelligence reports came back 2 days after the patrol. The Vex weren't just raiders. They were an advance force. A full invasion fleet was approaching New Terra, and the insects had been surveying human and Kethran defenses, looking for weaknesses. The attack would come within days, maybe hours. The compound transformed into a war zone. Humans and Kethrans worked side by side, building defenses and preparing weapons. Years of careful diplomacy hung in the balance. If New Terra fell, if the Alliance failed its first real test, everything would be lost. Commander Stone called Jake and Vara to a strategy meeting. The room was packed with officers from both species, studying holographic displays of the compound and surrounding territory. The Vex are bringing 3 ships, Stone explained. Ground forces estimated at 500 soldiers. They'll hit us from multiple directions, trying to overwhelm our defenses. Our combined forces number only 200, a Kethran general added, his gray fur marked with old battle scars. We are outnumbered significantly. Then we use strategy, Vara said, stepping forward. The Vex are strong, but they fight as individuals. We fight as one. Human tactics combined with Kethran strength. Stone nodded. I agree. Which is why we want you two to lead a special strike team. Your bond proved effective during the patrol. We need that effectiveness now. Jake studied the tactical display. What's the mission? The Vex will establish a command post, Stone said, highlighting an area near the compound. Here, in the old mining complex. It's elevated, defensible, and gives them a clear view of our position. If we can take out their command structure early, we can throw their entire assault into chaos. A suicide mission, Dren said from across the room. The command post will be heavily defended. Not suicide, Jake corrected, an idea forming. Difficult, yes. But possible. We go in small and fast. Hit them before they're fully established. Vara's eyes gleamed. A strike team of our best warriors. Humans and Kethrans working as one unit. Exactly, Stone said. You'll have 20 soldiers. The best we have. Your objective is to eliminate the Vex command and get out alive. Can you do it? Jake and Vara looked at each other. Through the bond, he felt her determination matching his own. Yes, sir, they said together. The strike team assembled at midnight. Jake recognized most of the faces. Davis, Chen, and Hayes from the patrol. Dren, Kira, and Mira from the Kethrin side. Others he'd trained with over the past weeks. All of them had volunteered, knowing the odds. Jake checked his weapons one last time. Rifle, pistol, knife, grenades. Standard loadout, but it felt heavier tonight. This wasn't a patrol or a training exercise. This was war. Vara appeared beside him, her armor gleaming in the darkness. She'd painted traditional Kethrin war marks on her face, symbols that meant honor and courage. Without asking, she reached out and traced similar marks on Jake's face with her claw, using dark paint. "Now you are truly one of us," she said softly. Through the bond, Jake felt her fear. Not for herself, but for him. For all of them. But underneath the fear was iron determination. They would succeed or die trying. The team moved out in darkness, using the terrain to avoid Vex patrols. The mining complex loomed ahead, its towers black against the starlit sky. Jake could see movement, lots of it. The Vex were setting up, bringing in equipment and weapons. "They're not ready yet," Vara whispered. "Good. We use that." They split into 3 groups. Dren's team would hit from the west, creating a distraction. Kira and Mira would strike from the east, targeting their communications. Jake and Vara would lead the main assault straight up the middle to the command post. The signal came. Explosions lit up the western approach as Dren's team opened fire. The Vex scrambled, their compound eyes reflecting the flames. Then the eastern side erupted as the twins destroyed the communication array. "Now," Vara snarled, and they charged. The bond made them unstoppable. Jake knew exactly where Vara would be, could anticipate her every move. When she drew fire, he flanked. When he needed cover, she provided it. They moved through the Vex lines like a knife through flesh, their team following the path they carved. But the Vex were professional soldiers. They rallied quickly, bringing heavy weapons to bear. Energy blasts tore through the air. Jake saw Chen go down, clutching his leg. Davis dragged him to cover, firing back with his pistol. The Kethrins fought with terrifying ferocity. Dren killed 4 Vex soldiers with his bare hands, roaring challenges. Kira and Mira moved like shadows, striking from unexpected angles. Jake and Vara reached the command tower. Inside, Vex officers clustered around holographic displays, directing their forces. They looked up as Jake kicked in the door, surprise clear on their alien faces. What followed was brutal and quick. Jake and Vara fought as one being, their bond connecting them at a level deeper than thought. They knew each other's moves, covered each other's weaknesses, amplified each other's strengths. When the last Vex officer fell, Vara moved to the command console. "Can you disable their systems?" "Better," Jake said, pulling out a data spike. "I can turn them against each other." He plugged in and worked fast, using protocols he'd learned in military intelligence. Within minutes, the Vex command network was compromised. Their automated defenses turned on their own troops. Their communications filled with conflicting orders. "Beautiful chaos," Vara said with satisfaction. They regrouped outside. The strike team had taken casualties. Chen was wounded. 2 Kethrin warriors were dead. But they'd accomplished the mission. The Vex command was destroyed. "Fall back to the compound," Vara ordered. Mission complete. But as they retreated, Jake felt something through the bond. A spike of pain from Vara, sudden and sharp. He turned and saw her stumble. A Vex sniper in one of the towers had gotten off a lucky shot. Energy had burned through her shoulder, and she was bleeding badly. "Vara!" Jake caught her as she fell. Through the bond, he felt her pain as his own. It was overwhelming, paralyzing. "Leave me," Vara gasped. "Get the team out." "Not happening," Jake growled. He lifted her, ignoring how heavy she was. Kethrins weren't small. But adrenaline and desperation gave him strength. Dren appeared beside him. "Give her to me. I am stronger." "No," Jake said. "She's my mate. My responsibility." Through the bond, he felt Vara's surprise, then her acceptance. He'd claimed her fully, not because the bond demanded it, but because he chose to. They ran through hell. The Vex, leaderless and confused, fired randomly. Their own weapons turned against them. But some still fought, still pursued. Jake carried Vara, step by agonizing step, while their team covered them. The compound walls appeared ahead. Human and Kethran defenders opened fire, providing covering fire. Jake stumbled through the gates and collapsed, Vara still in his arms. Medical teams swarmed them. Dr. Hayes appeared, taking charge of Vara's treatment. "She'll live," the doctor assured Jake. "The wound looks worse than it is." Through the bond, Jake felt Vara's pain fading as the doctors administered medication. He felt her relief, her pride in him, her love. Love. The word was clear now, transmitted through the bond with perfect clarity. She loved him. "I love you too," Jake whispered, knowing she'd hear it through their connection. The battle raged for 6 more hours. Without their command structure, the Vex attack fell apart. The combined human and Kethran forces held the walls, fought back the waves of soldiers, and eventually won. By dawn, the remaining Vex were retreating to their ships, their invasion a complete failure. Jake sat beside Vara's bed in the medical bay. She was awake, her shoulder bandaged but healing. The doctors said Kethran healing was remarkable, even faster than the enhanced healing Jake had gained from the bond. "You carried me," Vara said softly. "I felt your determination through the bond. You would not leave me behind." "Of course not," Jake said. "You're my mate, my partner, my everything." Vara's hand found his. "When you claimed me before Dren, before everyone, you made a choice. Not because the bond demanded it, but because you wanted to." "Yes," Jake admitted. "I fought this for so long. Resented the accident that joined us. But that battle, carrying you, knowing I could lose you, it made me realize the truth." "What truth?" "That the bond didn't trap me. It set me free. Free to care about someone more than myself. Free to be part of something bigger than just me." Vara's eyes shone with emotion. "Among my people, we have a saying. The mark chooses wisely, even when the mind does not understand. My instincts knew you were worthy before my mind accepted it." "So where do we go from here?" Jake asked. "Forward," Vara said simply. "Together. As true bonded mates. As warriors who fought side by side and won. As proof that humans and Kethrans can be more than allies." "We can be family," Jake finished. The door opened. Commander Stone and the Kethran elders entered. They looked tired but satisfied. "The Vex won't trouble us again," Stone said. "And more importantly, our alliance held. Humans and Kethrans fought together, bled together, won together." Elder Corin nodded. "Your bond, once a crisis, has become a symbol. Other warriors ask about it. Some even hope to form similar connections." "Then something good came from an accident," Vara said. "Not an accident," Corin corrected with a knowing smile. "The mark never chooses by accident. It chooses destiny." Over the following weeks, Jake and Vara healed. They trained together, led missions together, and slowly built a life together. The bond that had started as an unwanted burden became their greatest strength. Other cross-species bonds began to form as humans and Kethrans worked side by side. Jake stood on the compound walls one evening, watching the sunset. Vara joined him, moving silently to his side. Without speaking, they watched the sky turn purple and gold. "Do you regret it?" Vara asked. "The bite, the bond, everything that came after?" Jake thought about that morning in the arena. About the fear and confusion. About the pain of fighting what seemed wrong. About the joy of finally accepting what was right. "No," he said honestly. "I don't regret any of it. That bite changed my life. But it changed it for the better. Even though you never chose it. Sometimes the best things in life are the ones we don't choose. The ones that choose us." Jake took her hand. "You chose me with that bite, even if you didn't mean to. And now I choose you back. Every day. Forever." Vara pulled him close, careful of his human fragility. "Forever," she agreed. "Bonded in battle. United in love. One soul shared between two bodies. The mark on Jake's shoulder tingled, as it sometimes did. 4 small scars that held a universe of meaning. He touched them gently, remembering the sparring match that had changed everything. "Thank you," he said to Vara, "for biting me that day. For mocking me. For choosing me even by accident." "Thank you for accepting me," Vara replied. "For carrying me. For loving me despite everything." They stood together as the stars emerged, 2 souls bound by fate and held together by choice. The alien warrior and the human soldier, marked and mated, facing their future as one. And in the compound below, other humans and Kethrins trained together, learning from their example, building a future where 2 species could become one people. All because of a bite, a bond, and 2 warriors who learned that love transcends species, culture, and even choice. Sometimes destiny doesn't ask permission. Sometimes it just marks you and changes everything. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's exactly what's meant to be.